Okay, so you know that idea that if you build it, they will come?
Yeah,
For ages, towns have been trying to attract talent,
right.
often focusing on specific industries.
Oh, yeah, like a certain kind of job.
Right, but what if we've been thinking about it all wrong?
Mm-hmm.
This research paper you sent me,
Yeah.
the role of immigrant human capital in Danish second-tier towns and rural areas,
Hmm.
it suggests a totally different approach.
It really does kind of flip the script.
Yeah.
This study suggests that a diverse mix of skills and backgrounds is key to a town's success.
So not just focusing on
Not just one thing.
yeah,
It's about attracting.
all sorts of people.
Yeah, economists call this human capital.
Okay.
Think of it as all the assets people bring to the table.
Okay.
Their skills,
Yeah.
their experience, their education, even their network of contacts.
So it's not just about attracting software developers or engineers. It's
Yeah.
about the electricians, the teachers, the bakers, the whole shebang,
Exactly.
the whole kit and caboodle.
The whole kit and caboodle.
Yep.
And they dug deep into this idea in Denmark,
Okay.
which has a pretty stark urban-rural divide,
Yeah.
much like many other places.
Right.
Copenhagen is the big kahuna.
Of course.
Then there are a few other major cities, and then a whole bunch of smaller towns and villages.
Right. So very similar to a lot of other countries.
Yeah.
This study focused on those smaller places.
Yes.
Okay. Makes sense.
Yeah.
We see that big city versus small town story play out everywhere.
Right.
Now we know the pandemic accelerated a trend of people moving away from big cities. You know, that whole urban exodus thing.
Right.
Did this study look at that specifically?
Yes. They zeroed in on people who moved within Denmark,
Okay.
from those big cities to these smaller towns between 2009 and 2020.
Okay.
But they weren't just counting heads.
Right.
They were looking at the types of people making the move.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
So was it just retirees seeking a quieter life or young folks priced out of the housing market?
It's actually more complex than that. There's this outdated assumption that rural areas only attract those who are less educated, less skilled, or retired.
Right.
This research challenges that head on.
Okay.
They're seeing a rise in highly skilled and educated folks opting for these smaller locations.
So it's not just economics driving this shift.
Right.
Maybe people are prioritizing lifestyle,
Yeah.
you know, craving more space, a slower pace, being closer to nature.
That seems to be a huge factor.
Yeah.
It's as if the pandemic gave people permission to reassess their priorities.
Yeah.
And for many, that meant ditching the hustle and bustle of city life for something different.
I get it. I'm feeling that pull myself these days.
Yeah.
Okay, so if more skilled people are choosing smaller towns,
Yeah.
what does that mean for the local economies?
Right.
Does it give them a boost?
That's the million-dollar question.
Right.
To figure that out, they needed a way to measure just how diverse the incoming folks were.
So did they go door to door with surveys?
Was that something?
Not quite. How did they measure that diversity in a concrete way?
They got a bit mathy with it.
Okay.
They created something called the Regional Entropy Index, or REI.
Okay.
Basically, it's a tool that calculates how diverse the mix of people moving into a town is.
So if a town has a high REI, that means they're attracting people from all walks of life.
Exactly.
Not just one specific type.
Exactly.
Okay.
And this is where it gets really interesting.
Okay.
Because this challenges some older economic theories
Okay.
about how regions thrive.
Hmm.
For decades,
Mm-hmm.
the idea was that successful regions needed to specialize in one thing.
Right.
Think Silicon Valley for tech,
Mm-hmm.
Detroit for cars, and so on.
Right. That whole critical mass concept,
Yeah.
you know, everyone's focusing on the same industry,
Right.
creates this engine for innovation and growth.
Yeah, but this study is suggesting that maybe diversity is actually more important.
Interesting.
And it makes sense,
Yep.
right? A more diverse workforce brings a broader range of skills, ideas, and experiences, which could lead to more innovation and make the town more resilient in the face of change.
It's like if everyone in a town is a software developer.
Yeah.
Who's going to build the houses, fix the plumbing, run the restaurants?
Exactly. You need that mix.
You need that mix.
A community needs all sorts of skills to truly thrive.
Right.
And that's what's so compelling about this research.
Okay.
It's not about attracting any kind of people to these towns.
Uh-huh.
It's about attracting a diverse mix.
Okay. I'm hooked.
Good.
What did they find?
Well,
Does this diverse mix actually help towns economically?
like most things in life, it's complicated.
Oh, I bet.
They found that the effects of having a diverse mix of new residents weren't always straightforward.
Okay, so what were some of the complicating factors?
Well, they found that a few things really played a role.
Okay.
First, it mattered whether the town was near a big city or more remote.
Okay.
And second, the specific human capital characteristics we're talking about made a difference.
Oh.
For example, the impact of diverse education levels among immigrants wasn't the same as the impact of having a variety of job types.
So it's not as simple as saying diversity is good or diversity is bad.
Right.
It's more nuanced than that.
Exactly. It's not a one-size-fits-all situation.
Right.
And that's what makes these findings so valuable.
Okay.
They add a layer of complexity to our understanding of how human capital impacts regional economic development.
Okay. I'm all about nuance.
Good.
But I need some concrete examples here.
Okay.
Can you walk me through some of their findings?
Sure.
Comparing different towns and different types of diversity.
Absolutely. Let's take a look at how having diverse education levels among immigrants impacted wages.
Okay.
The study compared a town near Copenhagen to a more remote village.
Okay. So in the town near Copenhagen, what did they see?
They found that when immigrants with a wider range of education levels moved to these towns near the city, the overall wages in those towns tended to increase.
Okay, so from like high school diplomas to PhDs?
Exactly, the whole spectrum.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
So it seems like the diversity itself had a positive economic impact.
It seems that way.
What about the more remote village?
Yeah.
Did they see the same thing?
Actually, no. In the more remote villages, the impact of diverse education levels was less clear.
Okay.
In some cases, they even saw a slight decrease in wages when the mix of education levels among immigrants was wider.
Huh. That's interesting.
Yeah.
So it sounds like the benefits of diversity might be more pronounced in towns that are already well connected to major urban centers.
That's one possible interpretation.
Okay.
It suggests that those towns might be better positioned to capitalize on the influx of new skills and ideas that a diverse population can bring.
Right, because they maybe already have the infrastructure and things like that in place.
Exactly. They're more likely to have the infrastructure and networks in place to support those newcomers.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Now, you mentioned that the impact also depended on the specific human capital characteristic.
Right.
What about something like diversity in occupation types? Did they see any differences there, too?
They did. Remember how we were talking about the need for a mix of skills in any community?
Right.
The software developers and the plumbers and the restaurant owners?
Yes. You need it all.
Well, this research found that having immigrants with a diverse mix of occupations had a more positive impact on wages in the more rural towns.
Wait, really?
Yeah.
So in that case, it was the rural towns that benefited more from diversity.
Precisely.
That's kind of the opposite of what we saw with education levels.
Exactly. And that's why it's so important to look at these things in detail.
Right.
It's not a one-size-fits-all situation.
Yeah.
It seems that when it comes to occupational diversity, those rural villages might be in a better position to fill gaps in their local labor markets
Okay.
and boost overall economic activity.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
So it's not just about attracting talented people in general.
Right.
It's about understanding the specific needs and opportunities of different towns and then trying to attract a mix of people who can fill those needs. Exactly. It's a much more strategic approach to economic development.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've talked about education level and occupation type.
Yeah.
What other human capital characteristics did they look at?
Wow.
And what kind of impacts did they find?
They also analyzed the effects of diversity in age, socioeconomic status sector of employment and wage levels among immigrants.
What?
And they found that having a diverse range of ages and income levels consistently benefited both urban and rural areas.
Okay.
It suggests that a mix of generations and economic backgrounds can be a real asset to any community.
So mixing things up seems to be the key.
Yeah.
Not just relying on one type of person or one skill set.
Right. But here's where it gets even more interesting.
Okay.
They found this really intriguing spillover effect happening.
Ooh, tell me more about this spillover effect.
Okay, so remember how we said the impact of diversity varied depending on whether a town was near a big city or more remote?
Well, they discovered that the positive economic impact of diverse immigrants was often strongest in towns that were near the big cities.
Oh, but
Not in the big cities themselves.
that's fascinating.
Yeah.
So it's like a ripple effect.
Exactly.
Those towns close by benefit from being connected to the city, but also from having this influx of new skills and perspectives.
Exactly. It suggests that these close-by towns might be in a sweet spot.
Okay.
They can attract people who want the benefits of being close to a city,
Right.
but also want a more affordable or less hectic lifestyle.
Wow, this research could have some big implications for how we think about attracting talent and boosting local economies.
Absolutely. And that's what we're going to dive into next.
Okay.
We'll explore the practical applications of these findings and what they mean for policymakers, local development initiatives, and maybe even for you if you're thinking about making a move.
I'm ready to dive in.
Good.
This is the kind of deep dive that really gets those wheels turning.
It is.
What's next? Okay, so we've uncovered all these fascinating findings about diversity and its impact on towns, especially those smaller ones.
Right.
But let's get practical. How can this research actually be used?
Yeah, that's where it gets really exciting.
Okay.
This research has the potential to change how policymakers approach economic development,
Okay.
particularly in those often overlooked smaller towns and villages.
So are we talking about like a complete overhaul of local strategies?
Wow.
What kind of changes would need to happen?
Well, for starters, they might need to revamp their marketing strategies.
Okay.
Instead of just trying to lure in, say, highly educated tech workers,
Yeah.
they could highlight the benefits of a more diverse community.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Instead of focusing on just one industry
Right.
or one type of person,
Exactly.
they could showcase the range of opportunities a town offers.
Yeah.
Like affordability, a strong sense of community, those sorts of things.
Right.
Things that appeal to a broader range of people.
It's Galley. It's about casting a wider net and recognizing that different types of people bring different assets to the table.
But it's not just about getting people to move there. It's about making sure they stay right.
Oh, absolutely. Retention is crucial.
Yeah.
And that means creating communities that are genuinely welcoming and inclusive.
Okay.
It's about having amenities and resources that cater to a variety of needs and interests.
Because if people don't feel like they belong, they're going to leave.
Right.
Even if the job market is good, that sense of belonging matters.
Absolutely. It's about creating a sense of place, a sense of community, not just filling jobs.
Right.
It's about recognizing that human capital isn't just a number on a spreadsheet.
Yeah.
It's about people, their passions, their skills, their stories.
I love that.
Yeah.
So this research isn't just about economics.
Exactly.
It's about building a place where people from all walks of life can truly connect and contribute in their own unique ways.
Exactly. And that has ripple effects, fostering a sense of vibrancy and dynamism that benefits everyone.
This is all great stuff.
Yeah.
But of course, this research was done in Denmark, a country with a pretty unique set of social and economic conditions.
Yeah.
Would these findings apply elsewhere in places with different structures and cultures?
That's the million-dollar question.
Right.
It'd be fascinating to see similar studies conducted in other countries to see if these patterns hold true.
So more research is needed.
Yeah.
But even if the specific outcomes vary, I think the underlying principle of this research is pretty powerful.
I agree.
Diversity can be a real driver of economic growth and community vitality, especially in those smaller towns and villages that are often overlooked.
Absolutely. It's a message worth paying attention to.
Okay.
Whether you're a policymaker, a community leader, or just someone thinking about where you want to live and contribute.
Okay, so we've talked about the research, the policy implications, the broader picture, but this is the deep dive.
Right.
And we like to take things a step further.
Yes.
What does all this mean for our listeners?
That's the key question, isn't it?
Yeah.
How can this research be applied on a personal level?
Exactly. So let's say you're listening to this and you're thinking about relocating, maybe moving to a smaller town to escape the city grind, or just for a change of pace.
Yeah.
What should you be looking for based on what we've learned today?
Well, first and foremost, don't just look at the job postings. Look at the people.
So do your research. Check out the town's demographics.
Yeah.
See if there's a good mix of ages, backgrounds, skills, and interests.
Exactly. Look for signs of a diverse and vibrant community.
Okay.
Check out the local businesses, the activities and organizations. Remember, a diverse mix of skills and backgrounds is a good indicator of a town's long-term economic and social well-being.
You don't want to move to a town where everyone looks and thinks exactly like you.
Right.
That sounds boring.
Yeah.
You want a place where there are interesting people doing interesting things.
Right. A place where you can learn from others. Connect with people who have different perspectives and contribute your own unique talents and experiences.
Now, let's say you're already living in a smaller town. How can you use this research to help make your community even more welcoming and vibrant?
This is where it gets really exciting, because individuals have so much power to make a difference in their own communities.
I love that. So what can people do? Give us some ideas.
Well, for starters, support local businesses and organizations that are creating opportunities for a diverse range of people.
So things like shopping at locally owned stores instead of big chains,
Yeah.
volunteering at organizations that serve diverse populations, attending community events that celebrate different cultures.
Exactly. Those are all great examples.
Okay.
You can also get involved in local government or civic organizations that are working to promote inclusion and diversity,
Okay.
advocate for policies that support affordable housing, accessible transportation, and quality education for all.
So it's about taking action, not just sitting back and hoping someone else will fix things.
Right. It's about being an active and engaged member of your community. Every small step can make a difference.
This has been such an insightful deep dive. I feel like I have a whole new understanding of what it means to build a successful community.
Me too.
It's not just about economics, it's about embracing diversity and creating a place where everyone feels like they belong.
I completely agree. It's been a pleasure exploring this research with you.
The pleasure was all mine. And to our listeners out there, what are your takeaways? What questions does this research raise for your community? We'd love to hear your thoughts. Until next time, keep diving deep.